Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Work can be stressful. By its very nature, some types of work, some types of positions are more stressful than others. Some industries are considered to be more stressful than others. Some days are stressful than others. For some people, certain parts of the fiscal year, maybe certain parts of a quarter or certain parts of a month within a year can be more stressful simply because of what's involved in their job. Sometimes it can be stressful to deal with others within your work environment. Maybe that's internal personnel, your coworkers, your colleagues, maybe your boss. Sometimes it could be external relationships or interactions, maybe vendors or customers, clients. So there are plenty of opportunities of the work environment and the work experience to be stressful. But luckily, the good news is that we have an opportunity to contribute, and we can contribute to either making our experience at work more stressful or making it less stressful and more peaceful. And the good news is that we do have some sense of contribution, some amount of contribution to that experience. And it's up to us whether we contribute to our work experience being more stressful or less stressful, more peaceful or more chaotic. So, since I think it's fair to say most people would like more peace in their work experience, in their work environment, let's focus on what we can do in order to contribute to that. First and foremost, perception. Perception is so important. How we look at things, the lens through which we view a situation or a person or an exchange or whatever it may be, or an environment, makes a big difference. So first and foremost, perception is key. And if you think back to your own history in terms of your perception of things and events and people and behaviors, you should be able to tell whether you tend to perceive things as more chaotic or whether you seem to have more of peaceful type of filter or lens that lends to your overall perception of what is happening. And while it's not possible to control what's going on in our environment, sometimes it may be to a certain degree, but generally speaking, the environment is out of our control to some degree, maybe to a large degree in some situations, and of course that could change and vary as we go. But one thing that allows us more control is what we do within ourselves, within our inside, our inner environment. So regardless of what goes on around you, it is up to you. It is absolutely your decision on whether or not you want to increase the inner peace, your inner peace, which will then allow you to have a better overall experience regardless of what's going on externally of you. So, in other words, finding peace at work or anywhere else for that matter is a conscious choice on your part. And as with anything else, it takes time and effort. The other thing that's important to remember is that it also requires your focus. Wherever you focus, whatever you focus on, that's what will be magnified or highlighted in your experience. And think about if you or someone you know has a high intensity job. Maybe think about an ER doctor or a nurse, someone who works in a chaotic environment. It is absolutely critical that that person is able to stay cool, calm, and collected so that he or she can make the best decisions for those who need their help. So this is kind of like that, meaning that no matter what's going on around you, it's up to you to figure out a way to cultivate that calm inside you so that you can then interact with the environment that is external of you, regardless of what that environment brings to your doorstep, so to speak, in a way that best suits you. And as I said at the beginning of the podcast, most of us would like more peace in our work experience. So now that you understand that this is a decision, something that you want to give your focus and attention to and put some effort into it, where do we begin from there? Where do you begin from that point? Well, it's all about intentions. If you intend to have a certain experience, your chances of having that experience are that much better. So before each work day, I suggest that you make a conscious decision, have an intention of having a certain level of peace in your work experience. Now, that doesn't mean that everything will go your way. It doesn't mean that the environment in which you will be working, in which you will find yourself, will be calm and peaceful. What we're intending for here is your inner environment. So it's important to have that intention, to have a more peaceful experience regardless of what's going on around you. Just as it's important to have that intention before your work day begins, it's also important to have some time to assess how the day went at the end of the day. Identify how the day went, so make an assessment, and figure out what things could you do differently next time. Identify learning opportunities. Look, every day, every situation is a potential learning opportunity. It's up to you, it's up to all of us to identify those learning opportunities and then take advantage of them. So at the end of every day, when you assess how the day went, you should look for those points where you can improve tomorrow, improve next time. What are the learning opportunities from the day that you've just had or from the week that you've had? It's also important to practice how you want to be in order to cultivate more peace within you. You can practice with things like visualization. You can talk things over to kind of talk through what the best ways would be to react to different situations. You can do things like role play. So really, you can mix and match whatever works for you. Your imagination is your best friend at this point. But the idea is to be proactive and not wait until you're surprised with something and then have a knee-jerk reaction to it, but rather almost plan ahead of how would I react in different situations in ways that allows me to keep as much of my inner peace as possible. There are certain things to be on the lookout for. First and foremost, don't get sucked into other people's drama. Some environments are more stressful by their very nature. Sometimes it's related to culture or the people that are in your environment. So it's important to pay attention to that. Don't get sucked into other people's drama. Don't take the bait when people want to get you involved in whatever they've got going on. As long as it's going to disrupt your own experience and it doesn't really serve you or the situation at hand for you to get sucked into that, then do your best not to get sucked into it. Sometimes it's not emotional drama, sometimes it's psychological games. That's another thing to look out for. There are those people who try to bait you with one thing or another to get you into an argument or to get you to align with them against someone else, to take sides, or to get you in a bad mood. All kinds of people have all kinds of strange agendas out there. So it's important to pay attention to that, because oftentimes when things are part of our environment, we start to get used to them and almost take them for granted, and in some sense consider them to be the norm, almost a normal, if you will. So it's important to pay attention to that, because if you're experiencing such things or people and they are sucking you into situations that rob you of your inner peace, it's important to know that, so that you don't take the bait and you work on maintaining a more peaceful experience rather than getting sucked into their drama. Make sure you don't bother with things like keeping score. It's really rather childish when you think about it. It's in your best interest to be the bigger person, to be the adult in whatever situation. And I understand that there will be people out there who might argue against that, and that's fine. But in the greater scheme of things, it's best not to get sucked into that, because after all, that's somebody else's drama, or maybe that's your own drama that you're starting to create. Keeping score is not a way of keeping your inner peace, so make sure you're paying attention to that too. The bottom line is that it takes a proactive approach to gain and maintain inner peace. We all want to have a good work experience. We spend a lot of time at work, whether it's on site, whether we work remotely. It's still work, and it's ideal to have a good experience. But there are so many things that come into play, so many things that can be stressful, disruptive, intense. So we have to be proactive. Whether you are working in an industry or a position that by its very nature is high intensity, or that is stressful by its very nature, or whether it's because of the environment, the culture, the people that you work with or that you interact with that are likely to lessen that inner peace for you. Whatever the case may be, being proactive on your part is what it takes in order to gain and maintain a peaceful inner experience, and therefore a more enjoyable experience at the workplace. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what we discussed. While there are some jobs that are more stressful than others, it's up to you to cultivate, gain, and maintain a certain level of inner peace, which will then affect your experience at work. It's important for you to recognize your own perceptions, how you interact with the external environment. Make sure that you're not getting sucked into other people's drama. Make sure that you're paying attention to how you are responding rather than reacting to situations. And more than anything else, it's about being proactive on your part. Make a decision that you want to cultivate, create, and keep a peaceful inner environment so that you can deal with the external environment regardless of how peaceful or stressful that may be. As the week unfolds, I invite you to evaluate your own inner peace levels, how you experience your daily work. Are you able to stay calm, cool, and collected regardless of what the environment around you presents you with? Or are you more reactive? Are you likely to get sucked into other people's drama or their psychological games? Or are you committed to having a peaceful inner environment so that you can then have a better experience regardless of the external environment? Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I hope that you will join me again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.